We are pleased to confer two honorary Doctor of Laws degrees today to Mr. Stanley Kwok and Mrs. Eva Kwok. Mr. Tulip, will you please present our first honorary degree candidate, Mr. Stanley Kwok?
From the waterfronts of Victoria and Vancouver to the skylines of Dubai and Hong Kong, Stanley Kwok has made a mark on the aesthetic of some of the world's most spectacular cities. In the process, he has redefined collaborative community planning. At an early age, Stanley learned to be flexible and adapt to change. He was born in Guangzhou and attended 10 different schools by the time he was a teenager. He moved to Hong Kong and Vietnam to avoid war and lived through the Japanese invasion of China. After graduating from the prestigious St. John's University in Shanghai, Stanley launched his career in Hong Kong, becoming one of the region's most celebrated and accomplished young design architects, designing more than 200 buildings and teaching architecture at the University of Hong Kong. But violent riots in Hong Kong, inspired by the Cultural Revolution, motivated Stanley to seek a brighter future for his young family in Canada. In his new home in Vancouver, he quickly established himself as an esteemed member of the Canadian Chinese community. A visionary of change, he developed and designed landmark properties across North America, including Victoria's award-winning Laurel Point Inn. Stanley also led Concord Pacific's successful international bid to develop False Creek in the late 1980s. As deputy chairman, he worked closely with the Mayor of Vancouver to establish the cooperative planning process, a model of community development now used by cities worldwide. As he led the $3 billion development, Stanley became the public face for a new era of community engagement and real estate development in Vancouver. Today, Stanley remains deeply involved in the growth and evolution of communities around the world, including those close to home. A master of change, his ability to bring people together and guide them towards a common goal is evident through his life's work. For his noteworthy contributions to community building, Royal Roads University is proud to present Stanley Kwok for the honorary degree Doctor of Laws.
Mr. Stanley Kwok, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Royal Roads University Act, in accordance with the recommendation of the Board of Governors of Royal Roads University, I confer upon you the degree of Laws honoris causa, with all the rights, privileges, and honors here and elsewhere thereto appertaining. Dr. Kwok will now be hooded by Dr. Stephen Grundy, Vice President Academic and Provost. Dr. Alan Cahoon will now present Dr. Kwok with his degree. It is with pleasure that I now call on Dr. Kwok to deliver his convocation address. Dr. Kwok.
Mr. Chancellor, members of the Board of Governors, Mr. President, graduates, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all of you graduates on receiving this important milestone in your lives. For me, receiving this honorary degree from Royal Roads University is very humbling. I would like to thank everyone involved for this wonderful recognition. Today, it is important for us to look back and reflect on how we got here. I would like to share some of my reflections with you. Some of them are rather trivial. I was born in China and lived in Wuhan when I was young. During the Sino-Japanese War, Wuhan was in the route of the invasion of the Japanese. And my father moved the family first to Vietnam, then Hong Kong, and finally we settled in Shanghai. Before I went to St. John's University in Shanghai, I had gone to 10 different schools. While change and instability were everywhere in my early life, it did not traumatize me. Instead, I felt that it gave me the opportunity to make friends, to explore the new environment, and learn the different systems of different schools. From all the different cities I've been to, of course, their system of education is rather different. Well, anyway, I think at my young age, I had viewed the water in the cup always half full. I suppose it would mean a positive attitude. When I was 8 years old, my dad wanted me to learn to ride a horse. So in half a year, I was able to gallop and jump fences. One day, when I was approaching a fence, the horse decided not to jump. So I went over instead. I fell off the horse and broke my wrist. And I thought to myself, that's probably the end of my riding. But as soon as I recovered, my father put me right back on a horse and asked me not to be afraid of it. Tenacity is what I learned from this incident. And also, one should never be afraid of failures, because from that, you will learn how to succeed. After I graduated from university, I worked as an architect who just moved his practice from Hong Kong to Shanghai. It was only a very small office of 5 people. There were no drawing. After 3 months, I was given a project to rehabilitate a bombed-out hospital. It was very courageous for him to trust a young graduate for doing such a big job. But there I was. There were no drawing records, and building materials were not easy to come by soon after the war. And to order building materials from overseas takes a very long time, and they're in a hurry to rehabilitate the hospital. It was not a textbook case, and a lot of the issues, you cannot find them in books. So I need to improvise a lot. The learning curve was steep indeed, but I managed to do it, and the reward was a nursing quarter and a south wing to follow. And I really enjoyed those very, very early experiences. In Canada, my life changed again. The opportunity of being a developer pushed me aside from practicing architecture. However, I still went through the exams that allowed me to practice architecture in Canada if I wish. As in my case, one never knows what kind of change may take place in my life again. I thought preparation was always a good thing. In the mid-70s, John Deeth, who's here with us today, and I had the opportunity to develop Laurel Point for CIL. The site housed the old paint factory. At the time, the city was against any development. We decided to try something different. We produced 5 different schemes and invited the Victoria public to look at them and give us their input before we even talked to the city. There were 2,000 of them who did turn up, and 1,000 of them written their comments on paper. We then designed a new scheme incorporating many of their ideas, and together with their comments, we submitted to the city. We got a unanimous city approval. It was a very interesting way to learn the importance of public opinion. In the late 80s, Mr. Li Ka-shing and his son Victor asked me to join them on an international bid for the Expo land in Vancouver. After we won the bid, we still had to go through the city for the approval process. As it was one of the largest projects in Canada at the time, I was able to persuade the mayor to experiment on a different approval process. Instead of being a very confrontational one, the final result was a scheme that not only the city got what they wanted, we the developer got what we wanted as well, and above all, the public liked it, and many other cities came to study as to how it could be done. Thinking out of the box has its advantages. Today, despite that I'm 55 years old, I'm still learning. Every day, and I still work. When I graduated from university, computers were never heard of. We used slide rules. I wonder how many of you have ever seen one. Today, when my work or board commitments takes me to Saskatoon, Calgary, or Hong Kong, I'm lost without my iPad. And I think, I don't know how soon I can catch up with the next iPad that's going to come out. Our past brought us here today, and what we decide to do today will bring us our future. With that, I wish you all a very, very bright future and a very, very happy life. Thank you.